It's good to be a genius. In fact, it's even better to be a genius that is 20 years old and is an absolute monarch. And that's the story of the person we're going to be talking about today, the smartest guy in the world. His name was Solomon, and he was the third king of the nation of Israel about 3,000 years ago. He was smart in a way that made him really special. Not so much IQ smart, there's a lot of that going around, but he was smart in that he had wisdom. And that wisdom, which he received from God, made him great and gave him an international reputation. So much so that the Bible describes him as the smartest man who ever lived. So this month, we're talking about the concept of wisdom here at 360 Church. And we live in a city where 2 out of every 3 people that you'll pass on the sidewalk has a bachelor's degree. 1 out of every 3 people in Berkeley has a master's degree or above. There's plenty of IQ going around in town, but what about WQ? What about wisdom quotient? Being smart is good, it's just not enough. Have you ever met somebody that's smart but not wise? You know, there are a couple of reasons why that can happen. We've seen them here in the city and other places. One is specialization. Smart people tend to be smart in a silo. In other words, they know a great deal about astrophysics or the way neurons work in the brain, or about black holes or dark matter or whatever, because to get ahead academically, you have to specialize. The day of the Renaissance person is long gone. Now, the downside of that is that the things that you learn in your specialization often don't have any application to the choices that make your life work. So you can be a completely brilliant engineer and have no idea how to ask someone out on a date. The other reason that this happens is a certain kind of a blind spot that really smart people get. You know, Thomas Edison was probably one of the great geniuses of modern times at the turn of the last century, known for a lot of things, but perhaps one of the strangest things he's known for is his advocacy of direct current, or DC electricity. He felt that the entire United States should be wired with this kind of electricity, and he was doing really well with this until George Westinghouse and Nikola Tesla of Tesla cars down the 580 advocated for alternating current electricity, and there was a huge technological debate about which one was better. The entire national infrastructure is on the line, in addition to fortunes that, well, they're just really beyond our ability to calculate. It's not really possible. And so they tussled back and forth, and Edison decides that the way to win the debate is to stage a series of demonstrations in which he will document the danger of alternating current electricity. And so he arranges a collection of small animals, starting with dogs and cats, and electrocutes them. Then he goes to a zoo at Coney Island, finds an elephant, and kills it with alternating current electricity. He calls this Westinghousing the elephant. Now, I read this account and I wonder, how could somebody of such towering genius do something so incredibly wrong and weird and bizarre? I mean, it just doesn't seem like it's even possible. And then the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology solves the mystery. They do an experiment where they give logic problems to 2 groups of people. One, very high-functioning, high-capacity, highly intellectual people, and the other group, more average people. And the average people beat the smarts. And the reason they do is because the smart people use shortcuts and false assumptions, both of which come from just one factor: overconfidence. The Bible puts it simply. It says knowledge puffs up. In other words, being smart tends to make you trend toward pride, and pride gives you a blind spot that makes you fail outside of the sphere of the tiny little part of the knowledge universe that tends to be the specialty that all of us tend to focus on. Do you know any smart people who are fools? Yeah, point at somebody and say, he's talking about you. You know, just get personal with it. You know, life is not a standardized test, and good choices are not a midterm exam. Life is about judgment calls, and at the end of it, what you want to hear from God is good call. Now, when you Google wisdom and you look up the imagery and the videos that are available, you find a lot of different stuff. But one of the really surprising things you find in great quantity is imagery and videos which are people coming out of anesthesia after having their wisdom teeth removed. Have you seen any of these? Yeah, they have titles like, Dan will never forgive us for this, and this is hilarious, and please post this everywhere. And essentially, it's people, often very young people, and you get the distinct feeling that these videos are being shot at the request of the patient, and they're basically talking like drunks out on the side. They're wheeling and robbing and slurring their words and talking and gibberish and say crazy stuff that doesn't make any sense because their bodies are full of whatever kind of powerful drugs dentists use to get you through this horrifying procedure. And then their friends, while they're in this state of complete inebriation, there's a loving friend standing there with an iPhone 5 doing that, and as soon as you're done with your last drooling gibberish syllable, this person's going to hit the button and post it to Facebook, where your prospective employer will watch it 2 weeks later, just before the job interview that will define your entire future. Now, these are the people who love you. These are the smart people doing things like this. It's just unbelievable. What's wrong? Someone has made a bad judgment call. They may have gotten an A on the midterm they just took, but their judgments aren't really very good. And that ability to make judgments is what Solomon has, and I just put it this way, it makes him great. So really the choice is really simple this month. Do we want to be smart, or do we want to be great? A smart person can do something that is what I call me size. It's about as big as them and their abilities. But a great person, no matter what their IQ is, can do something God-sized, something way past what they ever thought was possible. That's what good judgment brings into play. Proverbs 9:10 says, the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. So today we're going to talk about wisdom's emergence, that is where it comes from, and how I can get me some of that stuff, because we all need as much of it as we can. I want to tell you this about the month. This feeling came into my heart this morning. This sounds terrible. It happened while I was walking my dog. So maybe I'm out of the county a little bit here, but this came to me really strongly. That this is going to be a month of problems solved. That people are going to come into this month with thorny, sticky, tangled, irreconcilable, insoluble dilemmas in their lives, and come out of this month with those things disentangled, clear, and fixed. Yeah. Are you ready for a little dose of that? I've got some stuff like that myself. When I felt this in my heart, I said, yes! Even Ricky was excited. Well, that's exactly what I need. That's what we need. We've got things we just need to get fixed. Yeah. And I think God's really going to meet us this month. So I hope you take this seriously, and not as a series of talks that fill the 25 minutes between the two worship sets, but as a place where God can really just open stuff up. And today at the end of the talk, we're going to make opportunity to pray with you. If you've got some stuff that you just need fixed, or you know somebody that has that stuff, some things that, man, I just need some stuff to happen here. We're going to make opportunity for prayer for that today. Now, as Stephen Covey says, let's start with the end in view. Solomon inherits a kingdom from his father David. He's the third king of Israel. His father passes away when he's about 70 years old. Solomon reigns for 40 years. He succeeds. We'll talk about this next week. It's just, there isn't a bullet list long enough to list all of the stuff that he accomplished. But even the smartest man alive runs out of time. And as an elderly monarch, he passes away from natural causes, and he shares the dust with his father David. And so 1 Kings chapter 11, and this is the chapter where we find the majority of the story we'll look at today, tells the story not of how he begins, but how he ends as a king. Now the rest of the acts of Solomon and all that he did in his wisdom, are they not written in the book of the Acts of Solomon? In other words, he did so much stuff, it took more than one book to write it all down. And the time that Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over all Israel was 40 years. And Solomon slept with his fathers. That's a lovely Hebrew way of saying he died. And was buried in the city of David, that's Jerusalem. And Rehoboam, his son, reigned in his place. Now I start with this verse for this simple reason. No matter who you are or what you do, even if you're the smartest guy in the world, at the end of all of this, they're just going to get someone else. It's the Rehoboam effect. You can have a parking lot sign at Cal that says Nobel Prize winner. And when that person sleeps in the dust, they are just going to say, next person up. There are no permanent ownerships in this world. This is a timeshare condo situation, friends, not a property ownership situation. And when your timeshare clock runs out, no matter what you're doing or how wonderful you truly are, or greatly serve the world, or blessed of God, they are just going to get the next person. How do I know this? Because in my profession, I do funerals. And after we bury somebody, you know what we do? We go back to the church and eat potato salad like you never lived. That's how you're going to end. It's going to be a potato salad festival, maybe some orange jello with those little carrot slivers in it, some red bug juice type Kool-Aid, maybe somebody brings a little tofu meatloaf and we all eat that. Oh yes, wasn't he a nice guy? Next thing you know, we're talking about the movies we saw last week. I've been through this 200 times. It's what I do. It's when you're gone, you're gone. They just push on and get the next person. And this is where wisdom begins. In the fear of the Lord, in the knowledge of one simple fact. The grave proves that I am not God. God is infinite. I am from Pittsburgh. God is omnipresent. I am at the Shattuck Cinemas today and nowhere else until the service is done. God is omnipotent. I can't even figure out how to make my new bicycle work. God is omniscient. I don't remember what I had for breakfast 2 days ago. God is loving. I am nice sometimes. God is just. I'm liking a little payback every now and then. God is eternal, no beginning and no end. But me, no sir. This week I got a letter from my HMO. And then I got a second letter from my HMO. They were about the same subject, except the second letter had the message of the first letter translated into 3 languages that I do not speak. But it all came down to this. I passed my colorectal cancer screening test. I have no occult blood. I got to a lot of regular stuff, but I have no. I'm so proud. I studied so hard for that test, and it means I'm safe from some terrible wasting disease for another 12 months. But one day I will take some test with some doctor somewhere that will not come back negative. And while it won't change anything right away, it'll change things over time, and the changes will take a form that will trend downward toward the dust, because that's where we're all going, to sleep with our fathers in the dust. Like a bottle of Tylenol, did you know that you have an expiration date stamped invisibly on you somewhere? The scripture says it's appointed for a man once to die. What if God put that on us as a tattoo? Next week? You gotta be kidding me. I'm so young. I mean, I haven't even got a chance to collect on Social Security yet. After paying all those taxes, I better hurry and get everything done. I gotta get the yard bought. I gotta find a life insurance policy. I gotta find a new husband for Janet. I've only got 7 days to get all this ready. We've got no food in the house. Where are we gonna get the potato salad for the funeral next week? You gotta be kidding me. I'm gonna live 1,000 miles an hour. I'm gonna go and buy a case of Adderall and stay up 24 hours a day and get everything done and witness to all my friends I never talked to about Jesus and get it all accomplished. Next week, no! Teach me to number my days, O Lord. How could we ever close the gap between us who come from the dust, who are going back to the dust, and the God who is infinite and has made everything that is, including the dust we sprang from? I'm reminded of Paul's words, thanks be to God for his Son, Jesus Christ, who through his sacrifice on the cross has made it possible for us to have a relationship with God, forgiveness of sin, and eternal life that trumps the grave. See, in Jesus, think of it this way, there's something after the potato salad. Solomon has every reason to choose to be self-reliant. He's David's 10th son. Yes, 10. and the second son of Bathsheba, who remained an influence in David's life until the very end. And unlike Israel's first two kings, Saul and David, who were raised up from the common people, Solomon was born among the royals. He was born in the palace. He was born to wealth and privilege and to an education that was just beyond people in the ancient world. No one could touch what this young man had available to him. He had never known poverty. He had known a lot of violence. 6 of his half-brothers died by violence, and one of his half-sisters was sexually assaulted. He had seen terrible things as a result of the kind of intrigue that takes place, because David's life is sort of Game of Thronesy. I mean, it's just, wow, it's really full-on forceful and violent. He saw all of that as a little boy growing up, and he had seen those consequences, but he had never known the sort of poverty that the average person in the streets had known. The first two kings were brought up to the throne by a direct divine intervention. A prophet from God pointed them out. He's the one, and they walk into the throne and he sits on it. Now, God has told David in advance, your son Solomon is going to succeed you on the throne. And so it appears, and we have to infer this from the passages, that David accepts this and then waits years and years for God to do something which pushes Solomon into place. Nothing happens. God, so to speak, sits on his hands, and David has announced that Solomon's going to be the next guy to everybody. Bathsheba knows it, etc., but nothing goes on. And so David is now old. He's sick. He's senile at the end of his life. He's in terrible trouble. He's almost lost the power to do anything about this. And so his fourth son, Adonijah, decides the king's weak. Nobody's pushing Solomon's candidacy forward. I think I'm going to be the king. He assembles a conspiracy, arranges a coup d'etat, and heads out of the city to have himself crowned as the king. David, back channel, finds out about this and says to Solomon, I'm going to put you on my personal mule, which people in the city would have recognized as belonging to the king because of its trappings. And I'm going to have my personal guard walk you out through the streets of the city on this animal that marks you as pretty close to a monarch. We're going to go out to past the walls to another place, just a half a mile from where Adonijah's knockoff coronation is taking place. And Solomon, I'm going to have you crowned as king out there, which means we're going to take a horn of oil and pour it on your head. It means that the prophets are going to announce that you are the new monarch. It means that the people are going to shout, "Long live King Solomon!" And then a trumpet is going to sound that seals the deal. A half a mile away, Adonijah and his conspiratorial companions hear that trumpet blowing, and they scatter like cockroaches when you turn on the lights. Solomon has walked back into Jerusalem. He ascends his father's throne, and he is Israel's third king, uncontested. Now, he has a lot to work with. He takes care of all the business left over by David that was not taken care of. He cleans house by executing everyone who was involved in the conspiracy. Then he forms an alliance with Egypt, and he seals the deal by marrying an Egyptian woman. He enjoys a united country, which was rare in those days. He doesn't have to fight a civil war. And more than anything else, he's able to do what he does because every major power around Israel geopolitically is in a centuries-long period of decline. That's true of Egypt. It's true of Assyria. Everybody that could have come against him, all of his competitors, militarily and economically, they're all in a crashing time of decline. And he's able to parlay this into an expansion of politics, economy, and everything else. He's sitting on top of the most strategic piece of ground in the world, the land bridge that connects all of those continents and all of the trade routes. And he capitalizes on the fact that under his father's rule, Israel has gone from nothing to a small empire. Looking around and seeing all of that, he would say, if we were in business, we would say the fundamentals are good. All we have to do is take what David has started, get on that roller coaster, and ride it the rest of the way. He has every reason to trust in himself, but he turns to the Lord, I think because of the heritage of spirituality and love for God that he received from his father. He has an inkling of where wisdom begins. And so 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 3 tells us, coming out of all of these dynamics, how he encounters God in his crucial decision that will change his life. Verse 3 says, Solomon loved the Lord, walking in the statutes of David his father, only he sacrificed and made offerings at the high places. Those are hills the Jews had inherited from the Canaanites that used to be used for pagan worship. They had converted over for the worship of their God. And the king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, for that was the great high place, the most important one. Solomon used to offer 1,000 burnt offerings on the altar. At Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and God said, "Ask what I shall give you." He has offered so many sacrifices that they have to use something that's probably a figure of speech, like 1,000 of them, to describe them. And 2 Chronicles chapter 1 portrays this scene as kind of the coronation party, if you will, that he never received. This is the way spiritually of marking that he is the new king. And Solomon is offering these sacrifices despite the fact that God has expressly forbidden that anywhere but the tabernacle itself. In other words, being at Gibeon, he's in error. Mr. Smarty Pants. He's in the wrong place, doing the wrong thing. This is a capital crime. It's a death sentence. And nonetheless, God shows up. He meets you right where you are. This king is not a perfect man. He's in the wrong place. He's doing the wrong thing. But his inclinations are Godward. And so God shows up and meets him right where he is and says, "Ask what I shall give you." In other words, what he's saying is, what do you want really? I'm going to overlook the location of this. There'll be a change of venue later. But I'm going to ask you, what do you want really? And where wisdom begins is the answer to that question. What do you want really? Do you want to be smart? Or do you want to be great? Smart's really good. It's just not enough. Greatness is smart plus something else. The ability to make judgments that place us in the potential for God's full plan to be realized in our lives. God's going to come and find you even if you're not getting everything right. And once he finds you there, he'll take you to where you need to go. Don't wait to get everything all straightened out to embrace everything God has for you. He's perfectly willing to reach out and take your hand wherever you are. While we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Nothing about that attitude has changed. It's not about us pursuing him. It's about him coming for us. And here's what Solomon says in this dialogue. In verse 6, he says, speaking to God, "You have shown great and steadfast love to your servant David, my father, because he walked before you in faithfulness, in righteousness, and in uprightness of heart toward you. You've kept for him this day and steadfast love, and have given him a son to sit on his throne this day. And now, O Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of David my father. Although I am but a little child," he's not referring to his youth, he's referring to his inexperience there. "I do not know how to go out or come in." Same idea. I've never been down this path before. I've been the king like 10 minutes. "And your servant is in the midst of your people, whom you have chosen, a great people, too many to be numbered." There's just so many of them. I don't know what to do. It's all new to me. "Give your servant, therefore, an understanding mind to govern your people, that I may discern between good and evil, for who is able to govern this great people?" It's all just too much. You know what? A God-sized potential will always feel like too much. If it feels like it's just about right, maybe it's just me. But if you look at it and go, maybe not in public, but in private, you go, that just might be the Lord, friend, trying to push your way out into something that gives you that. I get that feeling sometimes. And Solomon is saying, this is beyond me, God. I can't be self-reliant here, because if I do, I'm going to foul this all up. I'm going to destroy these people. It's too much for me. It's overwhelming. God says this: "It pleased the Lord that Solomon had asked this, and God said to him, because you have asked this and have not asked for yourself long life or riches, or the life of your enemies, but you have asked for yourself understanding to discern what is right. Behold, now I do according to your word. Behold, I give you a wise and discerning mind, so that none like you has been before, and none like you shall arise after you. We're still talking about this man 3,000 years later. I give you also what you have not asked, both riches and honor, so that no other king shall compare with you all your days. And if you will walk in my ways, keeping my statutes and my commandments as your father David walked, then I will lengthen your days. And Solomon awoke, and behold, it was a dream. Then he came to Jerusalem and stood before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and offered up burnt offerings and peace offerings, and made a feast for all his servants. God comes and finds Solomon doing the wrong thing in the wrong place, and after their dialogue, there's a change of venue, and now he's doing the right thing in the right place, worshiping the Lord where he is supposed to in the city of Jerusalem, because the Lord came and took him by the hand and said, you know, I see the inclination of your heart. I see what you're trying to do. Just come with me. I'll show you how we really get that done. If I go to God asking for blessing to do my own thing, good luck with that. But if I go to the Lord and say, God, I'm going to put my arms around your thing, because I am not God. I am so little, and you are so big. And I want to be involved in something really, really big. I want to do something I can't do. I want to turn into somebody I've never met before. And I want the kind of discernment and wisdom that at the end of all of this, instead of hearing, this is hilarious, I'm going to hear, good call. Would you stand with me, please, as our band comes to join us? I feel like this room is just full of wisdom today for people. Just full of wisdom today. That we are doing the right thing in the right place. And so as our band begins to lead us in some more worship, sing along or just kind of listen to it, let it wash over to you, open your heart to it. And there'll be a few of us here at the front. If you would like to have somebody pray with you about maybe a situation or problem, an issue, something where you just need something to work out for you. You're just tired of it, you know? It's just time for something to work out. We would love to be able to pray with you about that, and we'll do that in a way that you'll feel real comfortable with, and we'll make you glad that you came. When that prayer time goes on for a while, then we'll be led into a time of communion, and Chira will come and do that communion service for us. But come and let us pray with you today if you could really use a dose of wisdom to get some stuff solved.